Coming up on Arirang News, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un pays tribute to his father and grandfather on the anniversary of the regime's founding. The U.S. is reiterating its call for the North to return to dialogue. More than 1,800 new coronavirus cases reported in South Korea on Friday. With the Chuseok holiday coming up, the authorities are working to make sure there are enough hospital beds in case infections surge. And the European Central Bank is keeping its monetary policy unchanged with interest rates at zero. It's going to temporarily slow down its asset purchases, but says it's not tapering because the overall amount of support will stay the same. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. The European Central Bank has decided to keep interest rates where they are for now, the main rate at 0%. But it is going to slow down its asset purchases somewhat for the next 3 months, though it's not calling that tapering because the amount of overall support is not changing. Min Soo-kyun reports.
The European Central Bank has decided to leave its monetary policy unchanged. The Governing Council on Thursday voted to keep the interest rate on the bank's main refinancing operations at 0%, while rates for the marginal lending facility are 0.25% and rates on the deposit facility are 0.5%. It reiterated that the interest rates will remain at the present or lower levels until inflation stabilizes at 2%. The ECB also decided to buy bonds at a moderately lower pace in the next 3 months.
Based on a joint assessment of financing conditions and the inflation outlook, the Governing Council judges that favorable financing conditions can be maintained with a moderately lower pace of net asset purchases under the Pandemic Emergency Purchase Program than in the previous 2 quarters.
It stressed, however, that the move wasn't a tapering, saying that the size of the net asset purchases under its Pandemic Emergency Purchase Program was unchanged. The ECB explained it was reducing the pace, not lowering the total amount of support, which is set at 1.85 trillion euros, or about $2.2 trillion. With the latest decision, this now means that it will be buying less than 80 billion euros, or about $95 billion of bonds per month, the initial amount it had been purchasing. The European Central Bank also revised up its growth and inflation forecast for this year as the Eurozone economy recovers faster than expected from the pandemic. It raised the growth forecast for this year to 5% and revised up the inflation outlook for 2021 to 2.2%. High above the 1.9% projected in June. Min Soo-kyun, Arirang News.
The South Korean government is going to start giving consumers cash back again for ordering delivery food starting September 15th. If you use a delivery app to place 4 orders worth at least 20,000 won each, you'll get back 10,000 won. That's around $8.50. The offer is good on 14 different apps, including Pemin, Yogyo, and Coupang Eats, and it'll go until the budget for it is used up. As for the current round of relief payments going out to almost all adults in South Korea, the finance ministry says about 36% of them have been dispersed as of Thursday. The government's aim is to make 90% of the payments by the end of the month. Next year could see the launch of a global alliance for the hydrogen industry led by South Korea. H2 Korea, the local industry group, announced that it signed a letter of intent to create a global hydrogen industrial association alliance. The new body would be made up of 13 private sector hydrogen associations representing major countries including the U.S., the European Union, and China. It plans to create global standards related to the hydrogen industry and help with the overseas expansion of hydrogen firms. It's also expected to boost cooperation and stimulate private investment in the global hydrogen industry. Streaming services like Netflix these days are often the first to get new movies, but even though they're already online through these so-called over-the-top platforms, South Korean cinema chains and film festivals are screening the films and having success with it. Kim Bo-kyung has this report.
Over-the-top video services and movie theaters are two contrasting ways to enjoy films. However, theaters and even film festivals are finding ways to collaborate with OTT services by screening content that has already been released online.
One of the country's largest cinema chain, CGV, has decided to showcase Korean films that went straight to Netflix. 7 films, including the sci-fi blockbuster Space Sweepers, are appearing on the big screen.
Around 80 CGV theaters nationwide will show the films until September 12th. Even though these movies have already been released online through streaming platforms, they are proving popular in theaters too.
In 5 days, around 3,000 people came to watch Space Sweepers. OTT services and theaters are projected to cooperate and coexist, with both having their own unique characteristics.
A film festival has broadened its horizons too. This year's Busan International Film Festival has launched a new section called On Screen, screening Netflix and HBO Asia's to-be-released drama series. The section programmer says the idea has a lot of merits.
We believe film festivals need to let talented independent movie directors be able to pave their own way to OTT service platforms. In the long term, we believe that this could be possible, and with this section of the festival as a starting point.
One business expert says that such a cooperation would be a win-win situation for both parties.
It will lead them to playing to their own strengths more. South Korean theatres are some of the best in the world with their 4DX technology. OTT platforms cannot provide such an experience. Films would then be split up into those that are to be released in theatres first and those on OTT platforms first.
Thanks to such collaborations, audiences will be able to enjoy high-quality content in different ways. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
South Korean retail giant Lotte Shopping, together with a private equity firm, is going to acquire the country's biggest furniture and home furnishing company, Hanssem. Lotte Shopping announced on Friday that it's going to invest some $256 million to acquire Hanssem, together with IMM Private Equity. As an operator of department and discount stores, Lotte Shopping expects the buyout to lead to synergy. Industry watchers say Lotte Shopping was selected as the buyer due to its big distribution channel and with a large customer base, both online and offline. Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Mr. Daniel Yu, a global strategist at Yuanta Securities. Mr. Yu, good afternoon. Thank you for making time today.
Good afternoon.
Well, let's start with the Fed's latest Beige Book report. It finds that the Delta variant is weighing on growth, but also that there's significant inflationary pressure, including on wages. Tell us about that and what you make of the situation.
Yes. Well, according to the Beige Book, U.S. businesses are experiencing escalating inflation that is being aggravated by shortage of goods and likely to be passed on to the consumers in many areas. If you look at the national economic picture, central bank reported that growth overall had downshifted slightly to a moderate pace because of the rising public health concerns due to the COVID variant. But overall, it seems that the wage increase is happening, and that is resulting into higher inflationary pressure. And they're saying that inflation is steady at an elevated paces, with half of the Fed's 12 districts reporting strong pressure, while the other half was at a moderate pace. All in all, inflationary gauge is showing an increase of 3.6% in July. But most of the other measures seems to be at higher even. So all in all, there's a bit of a concern where the inflation remains to be quite high, while there's an uncertainty about economy slowing down, which is indicating that there's a trend of a stagflation for the time being. But of course, in a longer-term basis, though, the Fed is expecting that the inflationary measures are going to be slowing down gradually, and that there's no major I guess, immediate timing where the Fed is going to raise interest rate anytime soon. All in all, it seems that this is indicating and giving some uncertainty for the investors, and that's why probably the U.S. market is taking some breather for the time being.
Ryan, and stocks on Wall Street were down Thursday despite the weekly jobs numbers this time being a little closer to expectations. The Dow and the S&P were lower for a fourth straight session and 2 sessions down for the NASDAQ. What is the story in the global markets?
Right. I think that if you look at the valuations, it is a bit stretchy for U.S. market. If you look at the Buffett indicator, so-called, which is market capitalization divided by the overall GDP, that number for U.S. is reaching about 207%. And it seems that about 25% of the companies of S&P 500 are having higher than 10 times price to sales number. So all these, I guess, valuation numbers are quite stretchy. And that's why even though the unemployment, or so-called the initial jobless claims came in at much below expectation at 310,000, while the expectation was about 350,000. But I guess people were thinking that is not a strong indicator yet to push up the prices for the equity market, as it's been very strong since the beginning of this year already. I guess there's a continuation of uncertainty regarding the Chinese stocks as well, where the Chinese government continues to intensify the regulatory crackdown on a lot of the online-related companies. And that is resulting into a lot of the IT Chinese companies that are listed in NASDAQ and U.S. market. All in all, I think that it just needs some time for U.S. market to take some breathing time because it has been very strong in the last 8-9 months already, and that the earnings have been very strong already, that I think they need some period for market to go up even further. We do think that the market can go up further, but it just probably needs some a few month of period of time. As always in the seasonality factors, usually August, September, and October are a period where the U.S. market takes some breathing time, and it seems that it's actually happening right now, and that's why U.S. market has been taking some declining trend in the last 4 days.
And here in Korea, stocks today saw a bit of a dip in the morning, but in the end closing higher, despite foreigners selling local shares. A nice gain for LG Electronics, for one, in anticipation possibly for a part in making the Apple car. Tell us about the domestic market.
Right. I think that when you look at the Korean equity market, everybody is feeling a bit burdened because of the liquidity conditions. Only the major net buyer since the beginning of this year had been the retail investors of Korea, while the institution and foreign investors will continue to be a seller of this market. Despite the earnings growth for this year for Kospi is over 70% YOY. I guess it's just that Korea is a very vulnerable equity market with a huge futures and options market. So like yesterday, we saw Korean market falling by 1.5% plus, despite Chinese market recovered in a positive territories, Taiwanese market recovered as well. Most of the Asian market did go up overall, but Korea is the one that showed a declining trend because of these foreign net selling continue to be happening. I guess the uncertainty is there because of the corporate governance issues and some of the government crackdown and government kind of following what the Chinese government been doing in terms of the online companies as well. So all in all, I guess the foreign investors are using this market as a bit of a playing ground per se, with a huge amount of the short selling as well happening. But as of today, we did see some recovery in some of the online related companies as well as the major companies such as Hanssem Electronics, etc. I guess you need some time for market to take digest what's happening to U.S. market and also need to see currency stabilizing. We've been seeing the Korean won depreciating from 11.10 level to all the way up to 11.80. Now it's down to as low as 11.60, but it seems that it's not really moving up or down, and it's kind of taking some breathers. So I guess people need to look at this currency movement and look at the earnings number in order for the market to go up in the future. I guess we're not going to see any earnings number happening for the third quarter until late October, and that's why I guess for the time being also for Korea that it is taking some period for showing correctionary period for the time being.
And finally, Mr. Yu, just briefly, there's an issue of the tech giants Kakao and Naver catching the attention of the authorities in Korea, the regulators who are looking at their monopolistic influence in the market. And so their shares were up today, but they've been down quite a bit the past week. Tell us about that.
Right. It seems that it's kind of following the trend where if you look at the Chinese government, they tackled on the internet companies. And for Korea now, they're saying the financial authority are saying that for the product comparison, the recommendation service of online platform, financial platforms such as brokerage, rather than a simple advertising agency per se, and they're saying that it is a violation for Financial Consumer Protection Act. Clearly, this is a heavy, correction where the investors are feeling very uncomfortable because government is cracking down on Kakao and Naver in regards to this kind of the brokerage services rather than simple advertising services. And that's why you saw the stock prices of Kakao and Naver going down by 10%, 8% respectively on Thursday. A lot of people were saying that there will be more room for these two stocks to go down even further. But luckily, and also on a fundamental basis, these stocks did recover today. We think that the untech businesses, Kakao and Naver, are showing a very strong top-line growth numbers. And we do think that there's a huge amount of new business areas where these two companies can grow. And therefore, if there's any kind of short-term correction that we've been seeing, we think that is quite a good buying opportunities. But some people are saying that in the short term, though, the stock prices should remain quite volatile. And when you saw such a huge drop in a very short period of time, it needs some time for it to take strength and then try to go up in the future. We do think that still both of the companies are very cheap on the relatively valuation basis. We think that the fair prices of these two companies are well above the current shelf prices. But nevertheless, for the time being, people are very concerned about the government regulatory environment for these platform companies.
Got it. All right, Mr. Yu, we'll have to leave it there for today. Thank you, as always, for sharing your insights with us. We appreciate it, and have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
North Korea held a parade on Thursday to commemorate the anniversary of the regime's founding, and afterwards, leader Kim Jong-un went to pay his respects to the regime's former leaders, his late grandfather and father. The U.S. is urging the North to return to dialogue. Paeunji reports.
To mark the 73rd anniversary of the regime's founding, Kim Jong-un and his wife Lee Seol-ju visited the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun, where the bodies of the regime's former leaders lie. The North State-run Korean Central News Agency reported Friday that Kim paid tribute to his grandfather Kim Il-sung and father Kim Jong-il.
Well, it's a part of a reaffirmation of the continuity of the regime and also reaffirmation of the legitimacy of the Kim Jong regime that descends from the founder of North Korea, Kim Il-sung, to Kim Jong-un's father, Kim Jong-il, and down to him.
Top North Korean officials also accompanied Kim, including Choi Ryong-hae, president of the Presidium of the Supreme People's Assembly, and Cho Yong-won, secretary for Organizational Affairs of the party's Central Committee. Kim's wife Lee Seol-ju's public appearance was her first in nearly 4 months. Regarding the midnight military parade on Thursday, the North state-run media says Kim Jong-un showed his appreciation for the event. The KCNA said Friday that Kim Jong-un expressed his appreciation for the parade, fully demonstrating the power and unity of paramilitary and public security forces. Although Kim did not deliver a speech at the parade, the state-run media outlet said he held a photo session with some of those who attended. The U.S. State Department didn't comment on the military parade, but urged the North to resume dialogue. When asked about it, Department spokesperson Ned Price said the U.S. is aware of the parade, but Washington has nothing more to say on the matter. He added Washington has no hostile intent towards Pyongyang, saying the U.S. is ready to resume dialogue anytime, anywhere. 배은지, Arirang News.
U.S. President Joe Biden spoke over the phone with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping on Thursday for the first time since February. According to the White House, the two leaders discussed their responsibility to ensure that, quote, competition does not veer into conflict. And Biden talked about the importance of peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific and the world. The White House says they discussed both areas where their interests converge and where they diverge, and agreed to engage in those issues in a way that's open and straightforward. Also, according to China's Xinhua News, Biden told President Xi that the U.S. has no intention to change its stance on the One China policy. South Korea and Mongolia have agreed to elevate their bilateral ties to a strategic partnership. President Moon Jae-in held a virtual summit on Friday with his Mongolian counterpart Ohuna Kurelsuk and discussed ways to expand forward-looking cooperation.
몽골과 한국은 오늘 양국 관계를 전략적 동반자 관계로 격상하기로 했습니다. 새로운 30년을 향해 더욱 굳건하게 손을 잡았습니다. 친환경, 투자, 유통, 광물업을 비롯한 다양한 분야에서 우리는 새롭게 협력하며 공동 번영을 이뤄갈 수 있습니다.
And to that end, the two sides say they will further develop their complementary and reciprocal economic relationship through South Korea's advanced technology and Mongolia's abundant resources. South Korea will also seek new projects with Mongolia as part of its new northern policy aimed at boosting ties with countries in the north. It'll also support Mongolia's economic recovery in the post-pandemic era. The leaders also agreed on the importance of dialogue to achieve the complete denuclearization of the Korean peninsula, and they pledged continued exchanges of ideas to contribute to regional peace and prosperity. Mongolia is a key partner of South Korea's new northern policy and is also a member of the Seoul-led Regional Health Initiative. Last year, the two sides marked 3 decades of diplomatic relations. With the Chuseok holiday around the corner and millions of people planning to travel, the health authorities in South Korea are worried about a surge in infections and possible shortages of hospital beds for people in critical condition. They've also announced detailed guidelines for storing COVID-19 vaccines. Choi Won-jong has the details.
Over 1,800 daily COVID-19 cases were reported Friday in South Korea. All but 35 were locally transmitted. The total number of cases is now nearly 270,000. The health authorities are on their toes due to 70% recent infections occurring just in the capital area. And they're also concerned about possibility of a bed shortage as more people are expected to travel during the Chuseok holiday.
With the fourth wave of infections, the number of cases and patients is increasing, putting pressure on hospital beds outside the capital region.
As a precautionary measure for the upcoming Chuseok holiday, an administrative order has been issued to secure more beds outside the Greater Seoul area. For critically ill patients, 146 hospital beds will be added by expanding the number of hospitals that take coronavirus patients. And for the other cases, more than 1,000 beds will be secured from 46 hospitals, which can treat around 3,500 patients if needed. The authorities also stressed the need to prepare for COVID-19 patients to start getting treatment at home, rather than hospitals or COVID-19 treatment centers. So far, just 62 patients are receiving treatment at home, mostly in the capital area. Meanwhile, as more people are getting inoculated before the national holiday, the authorities have imposed detailed guidelines, including double-checking the expiration date of the vaccine doses every day to prevent anyone from being given the wrong doses. As of Friday, more than 32 million people got vaccinated with at least one dose. That's more than 62% of the population in Korea. Over 90 million have been fully vaccinated. 최원정, Arirang News.
And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.